Are you ready for this sickness? Let's get into it. Yay! Hey, everybody in the chat. I know people are just going to start coming in. Thank you so much, Brian, for coming today. This is really great. I've been looking forward to this for quite some. I mean, we've talked plenty of times, but I'm looking forward to this one.
This is a fun theme that you came up with, Billy. Thank you so much for inviting me on board. It's always great to be down with the sickness.
I hope you don't mind that I put you on Darth Sidious or whatever.
I loved it, man. I got that communication late last night. I was reading this anthology called Knights of the Living Dead. And then this image popped up a day or two ago. I'm like, ooh, I liked it.
The sworn side of the Force. So, but, you know, people are jumping in. And again, you know, I kind of I really want to, you know, talk to you about your life and stuff and collecting and the movie business and the music business and everything. And all the way till now, you know, your ups and downs. I think people connect with stories like that. And to me, I personally, that's why I connect with you myself, your story. Well, you're a good guy too, but there's something going on at Lady Death right now store. So let me put this up. I have a little thing. I believe this is the correct code. You've got a fourth. Are you talking?
I'm talking.
Okay,
yeah, we're going to get into a little pimping, and then we're going to get into a little talking.
Yeah. So let me go ahead and share the Lady Death store because I have it. But you gave us a code, Econ 4th.
Hell yeah, we did Econ 4th. You know why? Because it's coming up. May the 4th be with you. And
it's my birthday too.
That's right.
May the 4th be.
You're planning on part of your moms and pops.
Yeah, they planned the whole thing. So, let's just take a look. Where do I need to? Oh, the May the 4th. I see it right there.
Oh yeah, we got a main promo right up on our homepage, and actually I have some samples too. So what we're promoting is our own homages to Star Wars, since so many people adore it. But we are doing the Return of Lady Slave, and this art is by David Harrigan. In fact, David
showing something right now, or are you talking about the picture I'm showing? Oh, you're showing.
Yeah, I'm talking about that picture you're showing.
So the first one on the left. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, you got it in your hand.
Okay. I do have it in my hand. And what we're doing this weekend is we're actually offering these up to folks. And the overall edition is going to be limited to whatever people choose to order this weekend. And then we are retiring the edition.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. So it gives everybody a shot sometimes.
Yeah, that's what happened last time, honestly, or what's been happening lately. And I can't see you because I'm looking at the screen that I'm scrolling on. But what happened, you know, when we did like Don Mateg or whatever, we were usually the last in the lineup for the last show of the night, and you had been going all day. So when people would go, a lot of it was sold out, you know. So that's a good idea. Limited to purchases and then end it. That's kind of nice.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we live and learn. I guess, you know, we do our best and we learn each time a little bit. So here's another this is another beautiful color version. This is Naughty. It's the Return of Naughty Lady Slave by David Harrigan. And that's available until, what is it? I think it's Tuesday at 1 p.m. And then it's like, we're going to press. But also, I got this gorgeous image in, which you see on the screen there.
The one on the right?
Yeah, on the right, by Elias Chatzoudas. And this one I named Smile. This is actually a gorgeous commission he did. And I mean, the guy's unbelievable. I mean, the lingerie design, the attitude, the pose, the physique.
Yeah, the physique is very realistic.
Very realistic. And the color palette is very different for us. You know, that light blue background, something we would, under normal circumstances, almost, it's in my guidebook. Don't ever do that. But
it's like a heaven type of thing.
Yeah, it's heaven or daytime. I mean, one of our rules is don't ever show Lady Death during the day. But yeah, I think he did a knockout. Yeah, his work generally too, it's more what I'd call affable. So when he's portraying the character, it's more of a sublime side. She's less angry. Seems to be like private moments to me.
I like that description. Yeah.
Yeah, he's incredible. And then one of them rounding out this wild promotion, we have an homage to some comic obscura, which is Amazing Adventures number 18 homage, and that was the first appearance of the character Killraven.
Yeah.
And I think it was May of 1974. And being a long time card-carrying comic geek, this image is, there it is. The War of the Hells. We'll take the original image, which was this character Killraven, and compare, and the wonderful Dan Feldmeyer does all those neat graphics. Stephen Butler was the artist on this one, and instead of the classical tripods, you see the demonic hellified versions.
I like it.
They're fun. We have a lot of fun doing these things. What can I say? No apologies. I just like doing them.
You wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun.
Yeah, I think that's true. There's certain homages where you kind of chase the trends, and then there's homages like that ones where I'm just showing you some of the stuff in my formative years that really excited me personally. And Amazing Adventures 18, first appearance of Killraven, Warrior of the World was quite tremendous.
Yeah.
A couple more that we have here, and I don't know where we are in terms of the limited edition nature of these.
Yeah,
this is two metal editions. One is the Naughty Lady Slave metal and David Harrigan cover. And then the other is the homage to the classic.
Yeah, the Naughty one sold out, but the looks like the Star Wars Death Wars is still available.
Yeah, you might have a couple of these left. And this is an homage to the original Marvel Star Wars #1 cover by Howard Chaykin.
Yeah, I got one of those.
Yeah, it's hot, fun. Yeah,
that's the metal though. That's the metal.
Yeah, metal, limited to 26 copies, and it's 26 copies because it's Lady's 26th anniversary. So, for all you boils and ghouls out there, if any of these tickle your fancy, please feel free to indulge yourself. And that is the end of our shameless shilling session. But what you need to know. If you look at the bottom of your screen right here, we, in cooperation with Billy, we have a special promo for you guys called Econ 4th, and you will get 5% off your order this weekend until such a time that all orders are closed this Tuesday. What Billy's doing is actually scrolling down to some of the prints that we have to offer. And
I like that you have the print set for 100, all eight.
Yeah, so that's a decent deal. And it shows you imagery that we created last year as well. We did that action figure variant, and it is definitely not an action figure. It is definitely a print. We'll occasionally get folks, we'll say it right up front, but we'll occasionally get the folks who are like, I can't believe this isn't an action figure. And it's like, well, it's an action figure if it's like 1/100th of an inch wide.
I get it. You have to clarify every time.
Yeah, that's fair. We do a decent job of faking it. So yeah, sometimes you have to say.
Yeah, but these are really good price. I mean, look, you can get. Honestly, that would be pretty dope. 11x17 print of the, $16.
Yeah,
that's.
Yeah, and then you add the Econ discount to it, and I'm always happy to add a signature.
Yeah, that's one thing they have to realize, guys. When you click on it, there's options here where you can. Well, this one says unsigned.
Well, and then right below it, you could choose to have it signed.
Oh yeah, so you would just select.
Yep.
Signed by Brian Pulido, and it's free.
Yeah.
And does that come with COA as well?
It always comes with a COA, my custom Brian Pulido COA. Yes, of course.
Yeah, it's perfect. Free. Can't ask for anything more.
Why not?
So we'll come back to this at the end. But yeah, I hope you guys go check it out. May the 4th be with you. This is really
May the 4th be with you.
Now, question: would that code work if they wanted to buy something else?
Absolutely. In fact, I think this Econ code, Econ 4th, probably between you, me, and the wall, works on the entire store this entire weekend.
Oh, that's great then. So they can look at all types of things.
Absolutely. There's, for example, as you're looking at, gosh, yeah, you can just root around our store. If you're unfamiliar with our material, you're taking a look right now. One of our characters named Hell Witch, which is an R-rated fantasy sort of story, not for the squeamish. And there's a nice jeweled edition by Nathan Zerdy, which you're focusing in on.
Oh, I just had him on last night.
How great is that? We look at you guys, ecom blowing up. What? Hell yeah!
I
But
love
yeah,
it, Dirty. Wow.
dude, I remember first discovering his work on the convention scene, and I went up to him like, dude, would you, could you? And was really happy that he began contributing because his stuff is super cool.
He's a big time comic collector too, which I learned yesterday. Not all artists are.
That's true.
But let me get rid of this just for a sec so we can talk about that. Not a lot of artists are. You know, they're just art. They're
right
artists. But he was so happy, and that's how I connected with him last night. Was he was going on his wall, showing all his things, and you know, he kind of collects like I do. Like he'll get, like, we'll talk about this too. I just got this, right?
Nice.
So he'll get he'll have it on his wall, but it's signed, and he'll do it raw.
Nice.
So like I do that too. A lot of people, you know, there's people on one side that are like, no, get it verified or whatever.
Right.
I'm just a fan of the book and the artist, and I want them to sign the art. And
yeah,
you know, there's all types, but I connected with him through seeing that. I'm like, oh wow, this guy's really like a real collector. So
yeah, legit comic book collector.
Do you have that cap in front of you still? That one we were looking. So yeah. Brian said something very interesting to me today. He's a cap seller or buyer. He loves cap.
Cap collector.
Here on the see how it's the yellow background on the America?
Yeah.
So Brian, why don't you tell him something that I never knew and Brian just told me about?
So Captain America 100, as it turns out, has a variant. And how to distinguish it is in the drop shadow of Captain America's logo by design.
Mine's yellow.
It is yellow. Right. Like you have a nice rich yellow. This one's yellow. My 9 is yellow.
Yep.
However, there is a variant. Here's even a third copy I have. And you'll notice it has a white drop shadow.
Yeah, put it a little closer because I can see from here, but yeah. See how mine's yellow and his is white, guys?
Yep.
I'm
stone cold white. And so what people are speculating, I don't know why it happened, but people are speculating that about 10% of the print run have those white drop shadows.
Yeah.
And it just so happened I had acquired this 9.2 and it has a white drop.
I wonder if it's the back end of the print run, like maybe the yellow ran out on the
See, what's weird about that, Billy, is I actually don't know the story of it, but even with the one with the white drop, there's still there's still
some yellow
being used.
Oh yeah, on the top line and stuff.
Yeah, so I don't exactly know what happened. It's a printing process thing, and certainly wasn't by design. They
probably did like boom, they did this line first, and then they printed again with the setup for the cap.
Well, if you think about it, back then in particular, they did a type of printing that incorporated a concept called additive color mixing. Mm-hmm. So it would be the primary colors, and one primary plus another begat another color. And if I know this correctly, I think the yellows were actually considered a primary printing color at that time. I don't know the answer, but it's something that sort of just has come up in the last couple of years.
So that basically what they need to get out of this, if they're hunting for a Captain America,
I think we're blowing this up.
And they see, yeah, we're turning this into a big thing. And they see the white background like he's got. That's more rare than the yellow. That's what we're trying to get to. So
a friend of mine who's a pretty serious collector, and I'll let his name be unknown, pointed it out to me. And he said that white background is only on about 10% of the books. Hey, Sean Haducko, how are you?
So definitely.
The code is Econ 4th. Joel from Gone with the Twins. What's up, everybody? How you doing? Saying hello? What up, Eric? Lisa?
Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Serious sickos in here. So I was trying to download the videos of I had a couple of videos of us from the other stuff, but it won't come through. I don't know why. Let me see if I could. I just want to try once. Let's see here. I don't know why, but it didn't download as a a file that I could transfer to this program.
Oh,
But there's some funny. They're just
yeah,
really.
we're carrying on fools back at our online event.
Yes, it was so wonderful though.
I don't even know. We were nuts. By the third day, we were just like huffing comic books and running on.
That's kind of where it's.
Can you bang your head for everybody?
Wait, you could hear that, but let's see if I can bring it in just to give you a little reminder of.
Hi, Lee. How you doing?
Let's see here.
Christian Sworn.
Okay, can you see that?
I can see a still of it.
Oh, okay. What about this?
Can you
Yeah.
bang your head for everybody?
Yes! I'm gonna feel that tomorrow. Yeah! I love the snipper.
Did you see that too?
Yeah, that was great.
Oh,
Good time.
that was so much fun. I had so much fun at that event. I really
Let's
did.
do it again real soon.
Oh God, hope so. Oh yeah. By the way, it looks like I saw pictures. Your Kickstarter Decimation is in, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, so an update on that. Lady Death Malevolent Decimation Kickstarter. 96% of all the products associated with that Kickstarter are in. And what that means now is we begin the process of prepping and assembly. So we're putting the jewels on the books. We're making the metal books. We're making the lenticular books. And I am currently signing the books. So signing the books on a campaign of that scale is probably going to take about 25, 30 hours. And I do it over the course of 3 or 4 hours a day over the course of a week. And then we begin, and then we will stage it. So we're still looking at being out. Our original promise was May, and we're looking good for late May, may drip a tad into June. But the good news is everything's in, with the exception of the t-shirts, but that's by design. We're going to get the t-shirts in on Monday, May 11th.
Well, considering everything that's been going on, that's still great time.
Yeah, it's a blessing. We have everything in. Yeah, and another part of it is, like, imagine this, guys. We receive basically 2 or 3 or 4, in this case, 4 pallets of books. The first thing that we as a company have to do is do what's called a damage report. So it's not the sexiest part of the process, but it's critical. We actually have to go in and look at every physical copy and make sure that it arrived properly. And if it did not, we have to communicate that back to the printer, and the material gets reprinted or credited. So it's actually a laborious part of the process. It could take like maybe accumulation of 60 hours broken up over 1 to 4 people. So usually when we get stuff in, it's not like get in and flip, it's get in and check. So yeah, everything's in, which is nice. That means it's secure. But we're now in the next part of our process.
Yeah, I saw the limbs and stuff. I was like, oh yeah, yeah, because I know I was on those. I'm like, oh,
there you go. Yeah, I was signing them like a fool. I was signing more today. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I kind of wanted to take this time, a little bit of time that we have, to talk to you about your life, because I think it's very interesting, and I think my subs, the people that are in here, absolutely love you. They're diehard, Sworn and Fiends already. So
yeah, something happened, man. Like some magic all happened between us.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Well,
it happened. But a lot of them already were, though.
Yeah.
And it's a good combination. And of course, people that are going to watch us on the rewind later when they get home or whatever, I'm sure would love to know your story. So I was kind of thinking, I'll kind of ask you some questions about it.
Okay.
Where are you from originally?
I was born in Newark, New Jersey on November 30th, 1961. And I lived in the New Jersey Shore. Specifically, I was raised in a small town called Long Branch, New Jersey, which was exit 105 off the Garden State Parkway. And if you're from Jersey or the tri-state area, you know what that means. It's kind of how
like the show, that Jersey Shore show, or is that a new generation of Jersey Shore people?
No, dude, that vibe that was on that show totally occurred. Seaside Heights was, I lived in this kind of beachy town, and then Seaside Heights was about an hour south. And that's kind of how it was. And our family usually went down to Seaside, like we'd rent a hotel, like the whole family, right? Like 4 or 5 hotel rooms and just rock it out one weekend, summer and long weekend. But that's kind of what it was like down there. So I was raised in Jersey, and yeah, I went to Long Branch. Let's see, I went to Elberon. Still in touch with some friends from back then. Yeah, so I was raised in New Jersey, Jersey Shore. When I graduated high school in '80, I stayed back. I got accepted into NYU, which was literally my only choice. I had one backup, and I was an AP kid, you know, a college kid, college-bound kid doing all those courses. But in the end, I only applied to my number one, which was NYU, and my backup was going to be Seton Hall University in Jersey.
That's
and
pretty
I got
cool.
both. But so I graduated in '80, and then I deferred going to college for 1 year because my mom was sick with cancer, and I decided to stay back and to see her through because pretty early on we knew that she was going to pass. And so I spent the last year of her life, I was delivering fast food chicken at night, and then kind of keeping an eye with the rest of the family with my mom until she passed. And then I matriculated into NYU in September of '81.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry to hear that, but I think that's absolutely incredible and wonderful that you did that to spend that time with your mom. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that.
I'm old for that. It's just she's your mom. I get it. That makes me very upset, kind of, because
I
my
don't mean to
mom.
bum you out. I mean, you know, life is life, and I remember during that time, my mom and I always had a good camaraderie. So even when she was ill, I could read her stories, or we could watch movies together. I mean, we were quite friendly, and my mom actually was a huge horror fan. And as this legend goes, some of my earliest memories are my mother showing me horror films. I mean, as early as the age of 4, one of the first horror movies I remember her showing me I think it was called The Hideous Sun Demon. It was about an astronaut who comes back from being in outer space, and he becomes this demon, and then a nasty looking demon. And, you know, to see it now, I actually have it right now on my DVR. It's very benign, but as a kid, it's freaky.
Is it like black and white, older?
Black and white, American International picture produced by Roger Corman, probably.
Yeah, we've been doing that. I've been having these little. I've added older movies that I can actually show public domain, and a lot of them are horror. So people will come watch my little auction, and I'll put the movies up, and we watch those. They're really great to watch. And
you guys do commentary during that?
We'll laugh, but I'm mostly just selling my comics, like something like I showed you on one side, but the majority of the screen is the movie. So anyone that just wants to hang out and watch a movie,
that's cool.
In the chat, like they are now, they're commenting about the movie the whole time, though. So it's a lot of fun. But yeah. So real quick,
sure.
At what age were you collecting comics?
The earliest I might have been connecting with comic books long before I was about, let me think here. Yeah, I must have been connected with comics before I was 13 years old, which would put me at 1974. But I really officially began collecting in 1974. I have a lot of proof to that because I remember getting Captain America 176. That was July 74. And even over here, another part of my office, I have my first convention badge from a New York comic book convention. It was called, I think, the Phil Suling Comic Art and Collectibles. And that was from 74. So I've been collecting consistently.
I imagine those conventions were actually really fun to go to compared to now. I mean, I love the conventions now, but weren't those more about comics? Like it was all just sellers of comics type of thing?
Yeah. So back then even in the 70s, you begin to get segmented conventions, but the ones I'm talking about were straight up pure comic books.
Yeah, I would kill for that.
Yeah, probably towards the end of the 70s, you started to see Star Trek conventions spin off a little bit. And when you went to comic book conventions as late as mid 80s, late 80s. I mean, they're straight up comic books and comic book professionals. That's it. And there wasn't emerging. Sometimes people would have toys related mainly to comics, but
collectible, yeah, collectibles. I mean,
but then there was a company called Creation. Yeah, it was just called Creation, and they recognized that there could be different subcultures, and they spun off things like Star Trek conventions, and they would try all kinds of stuff. You know, whether it be I think Space 1999 conventions. I mean, when I was a kid in New York City area, Warren Publications had their own convention. So that was for famous monsters, creepy, eerie fans. Mm-hmm. So yeah, even back then it would be like that. But I mean, you and I regaled about this before, but last fall in Scottsdale, Arizona, they had a comic book convention that was just straight up about comics. And it was great. I mean, it was the whole ball of wax for me. I actually like the way cons are these days, well, up until a certain something happened, but I like that having it all together sometimes supports a bigger geek culture. But I certainly adore like really refined conventions, whether it's old toys or just old comics or just monster or horror cons. I mean, I like them all.
Yeah, it reminds me the con that we went to, like the original cons, like you're talking about, reminds me of like an old baseball card show, you know, where you like. Do you go to baseball? They'd have their table. They still do those at like
absolutely
like elk lodges out here.
Absolutely, they do. Yeah, I mean, those are like super lo-fi, right? Where it's
that's where it was too. The comic one was at an elk lodge too.
That was what was great about it, dude, because there was a bar attached. We had lunch. I had a shot of whiskey before I started my signing. It was the best.
I had like a great sandwich or so. I sat down and had lunch. I love like being able to. They were even telling me, do you have anyone in the military or to join the club?
Yeah.
And, you know, if your grandpa was in World War, you could be part of the lot. I said, yeah, he was actually in World War II. So I think those things are a lot of fun. Those cool. So, well, let's keep going. So you wanted to go to school for the movie business?
I did. Yeah. So I was, as a high school kid, I was prepping for college, but I didn't have a declared major. And in my 12th grade, I had for the first time ever, imagine this is 1979, I suppose. And I had a class that was essentially a film appreciation class. And like anybody, I enjoyed movies and stuff at the time, but I really wasn't kind of looking underneath the hood of what's a movie like. And this film appreciation class sort of dissected, we saw a movie, and we really dissected it, maybe from the filmmaker's point of view. And man, I became enchanted by that. And certain movies I might have discounted, when looked at with this microscope, I just had a whole new appreciation. And a movie that comes to my mind is, it was called I Was a Fugitive from a Chain Gang. And this was a black and white film, but my teacher, my professor, and her name was Miss Bricione, she was able to really bring the films to life. And I became enchanted. Now, simultaneous to that, myself and a couple kids in the neighborhood would make these little shitty Super 8 movies. We were not particularly, we were not Spielbergs or anything, but we're trying, right? We're doing our thing. And we had one kid in the neighborhood who really was brilliant, a guy named David Pisani. And he would make entire sets in his garage. They're remarkable. Things like the Bridge of the Enterprise. He really did.
Really?
He would cast us as roles. I wonder if those things exist. I don't really know. I know my pal Greg, his brother, would play the Hulk in some movies. Anyway, that did lead me to want to go to NYU specifically for film. So it would be New York University Tisch School of the Arts. And that's what I did. So I decided to go to NYU because filmmakers I had liked, guys like Martin Scorsese, had gone to NYU. On the whole other end of the country would be film schools like USC. And that was where guys like Spielberg and Lucas had gone.
Yeah, those are the two biggies, yeah.
And part of me wanting to go to NYU, Billy, was not only the film program, but I wanted to live in New York City.
Sure.
I, as a kid, loved and adored so much of what was going on in the city as I was in high school. I loved punk rock. I I mean, I liked the Velvet Underground. I loved the punk rock scene, and I would live vicariously by reading magazines like Rock Scene and say, oh my God, there's Iggy Pop and Lou Reed. Maybe if I get up there, I'll meet those guys. And in fact, that's really kind of what happened. I got up there to NYU, and I became a sort of a pop culture fly on the wall. And I had such a remarkable experience of being a witness to what I would consider really cool history. So for example, pretty early on, now look, people know me as a guy who loves hard rock and metal, and I do. But man, I love pop culture. So I loved hip hop, particularly of the time, and I got to see it come to life.
Yeah.
So as an example, in 1980, in the fall of 80, there was this thing called Uptown Meets Downtown. And what was happening was people from like the northern part of Manhattan up in Harlem were just coming downtown and hanging out. And graffiti was going from subway cars into art galleries. There were art galleries like the Fun Gallery, 51X, and these remarkable artists were opening up their galleries for people to just hang out. So a guy like Keith Haring, he opened up his gallery, and you know, like on any day of the week, you could walk in and like, wow, okay, this is this guy doing this stuff. And amazing graffiti artists, Future 2000, Crash, like they were super accessible because they hadn't quite blown up yet.
Yeah.
And that was the backdrop of my college years, to be able to, again, just be witness to this neat stuff.
And you got through college.
Well, yeah. I mean, I also, for example, there was this cool place. I love talking about the New York era. That was great. There was the Roxy Roller Rink, and Africa Bambaataa of Soul Sonic Force. He was resident DJ. I mean, I definitely saw Madonna before she ever recorded, because she had that look. She was very distinct. And it would just be fly on the wall stuff. And, you know, our neighbors, where my dorm at NYU was 5th Avenue and 10th Street. And my neighbors were guys like Billy Idol, Lou Reed lived in the neighborhood. And this was like a pre-celebrity era. Like it'd be kind of cool to see him, but you wouldn't like say, hey, I need a picture, or it just wasn't the time.
Yeah, I get
like
it.
Lou, you know, or Billy,
Yeah.
I love you, man. That kind of stuff. But those were the folks you'd see in the neighborhood. It really, to me, it was a real magical time. And I was into other things at the time as well. Like I was a skateboarder. I was not a good skateboarder, but I'd be all into that. And I would, you know, love all the skate heroes. So it was a real fun time.
It's really, you know, when I hear you talking about this stuff, I mean, I see my past too. I'm reliving a lot of my past. I mean, we're a different age, not by much, but I went through the same things, the same phases, the same likes, the skateboarding, I got into sports a lot, but music, the way you talk about the music is how I kind of dipped in here and there and different things. And I was a little bit younger when the hip hop scene hit, but I was there too,
Yeah.
All the East Coast, and then,
the 90s was a whole different era, right? So,
that I'm talking before that. Like I was a kid going to, do you remember going to Tower Records? For me, for me at that age was we would get a friend would have a car, and we would go to Tower Records at midnight to get the tape that just came out from like 2 Live Crew or something.
Yeah. The drop.
Or whatever, Public Enemy or whoever.
Right.
But that was like the thing, and that is no longer exists. Now you just press a button and steal it or whatever. I don't do that, but you can get music for free or however. But the experiences that you had and that I had growing up are so different. I don't know where I'm going with this, but are so different with kids nowadays that just sit on their couch,
I guess it is different. Yeah. I mean, what you're speaking to is the idea that the release of the thing was a big deal.
Yeah.
I can remember Van Halen was releasing a video for Jump, I think it was. And they were keeping it for like 2 weeks. And I mean, I was glued to the TV. I was like, man, I can't wait. And
Van Halen.
A lot of fun. It's simple. And then you learn they made it for like $600. And the whole idea of the release was definitely a big deal. I also think too, back then was, and it's kind of still for me the same, where I'm always looking for the cool, weird, obscure thing that turns out to be fantastic, and then love turning my friends onto it. And how that would manifest itself when I was a kid was you'd watch TV like past 11:30 at night on a Friday and Saturday, and the programming just got really weird. There were things like on USA Network, they had a thing called Night Flight, where a lot of local TV would be playing horror programs like Chiller Theater, Creature Feature. That was another fun thing. But yeah, that all harkens back to that different time. And I know time is different now. I strangely am not overly attached, or, I mean, I'm pleasantly nostalgic about it, but like whatever's happening now is kind of what's happening now. So I'm fine with that too. I just kind of roll with it, you know?
Yeah. I remember when I was when TVs and when I was a kid, there was only a couple channels out here, but PBS, right? Channel 8. If you stayed up late enough, you might be able to see a booby. Like a French movie, or Benny Hill. Benny Hill is my favorite. Yeah. Oh my God.
Same thing with Monty Python on PBS. That could happen.
That's right. That's right. But
my comic book equivalent of that story, Billy, is this. So being a young comic collector, I learned very early on that comics were sold at 7-Elevens or pharmacies in my small town, Long Branch, New Jersey.
Yep.
And so I struck a deal with the local pharmacy, and the deal was this. They would get the comic books in they just did in the magazines, and they didn't want to be bothered. So I would put them up on the racks, but in return, I would get the first crack. But that also allowed me to get a hold of all the Warren magazine, Creepy, Eerie, and also National Lampoon in heavy metal, which was a little risque at the time. So that's how I would get my little thrill that way.
I compare my heavy metal, my type of addiction, to something like you said, heavy metal, and I did get those, but to like Savage Sword of Conan or something.
Sure.
Like when I would get that, the internals on there were just, they brought my mind to life. Yeah. And they were risky, Yes. But okay, so you got through school and you immediately jumped into the movie industry or the music industry, or was it a combination?
So upon graduation, the first 9 months of my graduation, I graduated in 1985. I actually managed the film soundstage for NYU because my prospects were kind of thin. And then a friend of my sister cut the hair of a guy who was a location manager, like a big time location manager in New York. And the guy gave me a break. So here I am, armed and equipped with my college degree, and that qualified me to drive this guy around and get coffee and provide minor errands. However, it led to working on the first movie I worked on that was a big time movie, and that was called Batteries Not Included.
Oh, I remember that one.
So that was
space hubcaps.
Exactly. So the neat thing was I got to work on that movie for about past a year, early on during the location scouting and things like that. I have a story from that. So anyway, I was on that movie for over a year, long before it was shot. Then during the portion that it was shot in New York, but I'll have a story from the very early part of that. And it's this. So I'm driving people around. So now I'm driving the big wigs. So it's, I think, Matthew.
Golf cart?
Pardon me?
Golf cart or?
Oh, no. Okay. So I'm in New York City. We're finishing location scouting. I'm driving a car.
Okay.
And I'm driving the big wigs. Executive producer, director, like mucky mucks. Their lists are long. So I'm driving. My guy, a guy named Ted Cordilla, location manager, and we go to Katz's Deli. Now I'm going to drop them off. I'm going to go to the parking lot, and then I'm going to meet them. So I drop everybody off. I get into the parking lot, and I get out to give the keys to the guy, and I lock the keys in the car. This is my break. This is my job. This is like within 2 or 3 days of working on this. What the hell am I going to do? Long story short, I become resourceful. I find someone who's got like one of these GEMINIs, and long story short, I get the door open, and I get the door open just in time to meet the guys. And they're all like, "Hey, Brian, where are you? Where were you?" And it's like, I I feel all taken care of. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. They all jump in the car and I get them where they're going. And it was like, woo. And then I'd actually worked with that group for a couple of years ultimately, and eventually told them that whole story, and they all had a good laugh. And I think they all had like an equivalent story, you know, where you kind of.
It's funny that you say that, though. I think that everyone has some sort of story like that, as you said, an equivalent story. There's always this one thing where there's like this one time, and there it's a very important thing, and something goes wrong. You have to fix it. You know, you have to. It's just that chaos there for a couple minutes.
Yeah, it was pretty hairy. So, you know, in my mind, I can still remember. It's like, well, that's the end of my career. I'm 3 days into my career. It's over. And these guys are like, they're super powerful. You know, they're big deals at Amblin Entertainment. The whole thing is like, I'm done.
So then you did a couple more things. And how did you kind of get into the movie, or the music industry?
Well, what had happened was, I think I'd come off of, so I was working on big Hollywood productions. I worked on movies like Bright Lights, Big City. I worked on that whole movie. I worked on a couple of days on Big. I worked on the New York portion. All these movies were starting Big. What was it? Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting this. Lily Tomlin, Bette Midler movie. Sorry, I'm forgetting. Anyway, a bunch of stuff in New York, and then I was dabbling in music videos and commercials. And then I'd come off of a given project. I'm trying to remember which. I don't know. Let's say it was Bright Lights, Big City. And then I got an offer to work on a movie called, or let me back up a minute and try to present it this way. I got an offer to work as second assistant director on a feature film that was going to feature a musical act, and it was being funded by this new company. So the company was Def Jam Records. They had just left Rick Rubin's dorm room. The movie was Tougher Than Leather, starring Run DMC, the Beastie Boys, Orange Juice Jones, Slick Rick, like all these great artists at the time. Amazing. And so I was hired as the second AD, and a guy I had worked with was hired as the first. Now, I had known a little bit about this craft, being an assistant director, but I certainly wasn't qualified beyond what I was doing. And on at the end of the first day of shooting, the first AD essentially had a nervous breakdown and quit. And by default, I became the first AD. And although it was one of those odd circumstances, I only knew what I knew. Now, one of the producers of Tougher Than Leather was a guy named Dennis Benatar, Pat Benatar's former husband at the time. However, he was very skilled, very intense guy. And day by day, moment by moment, he schooled me in the art of actually managing a film set. But I have so many stories about that short time with Def Jam. I mean, Billy, we could do a 10-part series of the story.
So you were there with Run DMC. You said Beastie, Slick Rick. I mean, we all know Run DMC and Beastie are huge, and believe me, I love them. I've seen Beastie Boys multiple times, but Slick Rick, like he's got the poetry on the brain, man. I mean, he is amazing.
My Slick Rick story. So there's so many, dude. As I told you, I could go on for days. So we had to schedule Slick Rick so that he could shoot all his scenes before he had to go to prison. And the night before he went to prison, we had a giant party that went all the way through the night. This is my recollection, right? And then at the end of the night, they simply just drove Rick to prison. Because at the end of the night was the day, and he just had to go. That was my recollection, but
hey, that's a good way to go, I guess.
If you're gonna go, you gotta go. But now imagine too. So one thing that was going on was that movie, and then Def Jam was blowing up. So the office itself was a hub of activity, and the visitors, I'm total name dropping. I mean, any given day would be LL Cool J, members of Public Enemy, Quincy Jones. It was crazy. And, of course, all these artists I thought were phenomenal. And yeah, it truly was remarkable. And of course, I was assistant director, so I got to work right next to Rick Rubin, who, clearly proven to be a genius of his time. I mean, I have many stories, but I'll give you like little snippets. I got to witness Run DMC receive the final versions of their signature Adidas. So this was probably the first time an artist had such a thing, and they were presented to them right on the streets of Hollis, Queens. It was super cool to see. It was like, holy mackerel, what is this? You guys have your own shoes? What? So it was like the first time, to my recollection, something like that had happened. I got turned on to White Castle hamburgers by Joe Simmons, Run DMC. And it just, the list goes on and on and on. It was fun.
Just amazing because, you have your story is so good. I mean, like when I was young, I wanted to act, and I got messed up on drugs and went the wrong way and got myself out of it. But I always wanted to be an actor. I always wanted to be in the business. And so, USC was on my list. I went to really good schools out here. And I just got in the wrong crowd,
Sure.
And, I did what I did, and
Yep.
hey, whatever. But, but your story's so amazing because you've touched so much of the industry. And so many people that I look up to or love, you were there during it, and it's
yeah, I felt like a fly on the wall. It was interesting. In a younger part of my life too, I was somewhat voyeuristic, let's say. It's like I'm there, I'm doing my job, I'm doing my craft, and I'm kind of watching it all unfold. But I really, really did enjoy it. Lisa, you're right. It was big business. That's right. I mean, particularly when you work behind the scenes in film production, you're a service provider. So like, you can have some personality, but you're largely in support, and you're kind of watching what's unfolding. And working on Tougher Than Leather actually did lead to me working with a lot of very talented people on a ton of music videos. So I worked on neat music videos for like Heavy D and the Boys, Queensryche, Kiss. The list goes on. I'm sure I'm forgetting a ton. And I worked on quite a few of the hair metal, hip hop, and R&B hits of the late 80s, early 90s. And another phenomenal group of people, really. Everyone's pretty hardworking.
The timing, though, that is the boom. That was the boom of
it was definitely the boom. And I
rap and metal, or rock. It really went a different direction. You were right there when it was happening, and that was an
interesting time too. Yes, because we were doing a lot of hair metal, and then a director I'd worked with and continued to be friends with, a guy named Paul Rackman. Paul actually did the first Alice in Chains Man in the Box video, and he did the first couple of Pantera. And that's when you start seeing the Seattle scene started coming on. And of course, that ultimately devastated that kind of corporate hair metal stuff.
You're right. Yeah, the Seattle. Yeah, you're exactly right, man. But I mean, not to hate on the hair metal, but dude, you can't stop Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, dude. They're just too good. I mean, in my mind, they were like some of the best.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, and look, in anything, I think even in hair metal, you are just not going to have a better time than hanging out with probably Motley Crue, Poison. You could rag on them all you want. They probably had a time of their life.
No.
I'm not saying you. I'm just saying generally. But I mean, I think anyone would want to have the life that they had. But like a ton of the hanger-ons or like duplicates, or people who just sold out their own talent to jump on that hair metal bandwagon. I mean, I think it's probably 10 or 12 acts where that really was where they were coming from, but then everybody else was copying it, just started getting really dragged down and crappy, frankly.
Yeah. There was this specific few that really stood out that lasted that.
Yeah.
Still are killing it,
Yep.
So let's, after that, okay, so you've been all through this amazing thing. What was the trigger? What happened where you're like, let me start chaos, or let me start doing comics? Something happened.
Something really did happen. So what happened was I was getting really good at this job called being an assistant director. So an assistant director is a person who manages sets. That could be sets for music videos, for commercials, for movies. If a show comes into town, it could be part of a movie. However, I was getting really good at it, and I was doing what's called accumulating my days to make my book. So I was on this track where if I had accumulated, I think at the time, 600 working days of what's called call sheets, proof of work, I could submit my book to be considered to be part of the Directors Guild of America. And for sure, this is a craft.
Is the book like about everything you have gone through in the two industries?
Yeah, the book would be. It's not literally a book. It's how you define the days you worked is a thing called a call sheet. So that's kind of what's going to go on for the day, and maybe the terminology I'm using is outdated, but my book was my proof of all the days I had worked. So I was trying to accumulate 600 call sheets. That would be my book. And then I could go to the DGA and kind of try to get in that way.
Oh, okay.
And since the work was so hard, I still have many of those. I still have my book like packed away. Anyway, I got to around day 550, and I was working at this point with some very reputable directors in commercials and music videos, and I had some tremendous relationships with directors where like I'm their guy, and we're working. And I realized it was like that Talking Head song. I just sort of woke up and I'm like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? And now going back, like I am 27 or 8. Then I kind of realized I'm like, wait, I'm good at this, but I don't like doing it. And I was moonlighting to get back to comics. Now, comics had always been a love, and I always collected, but I hadn't considered comics. And years ago, I was just sort of I would say psychologically, I was younger. I was angry. I didn't have access to like how to get things done in the world. And I felt like the assistant director job creativity wasn't even sort of on the docket for me. I was just sort of performing this job. And on a particular day, I'm working with a director I loved. We're working on a big, expensive video, and a representative from the Directors Guild of America comes in, and he's talking in the background of the soundstage we're at. We're in a world-famous soundstage. And I overhear that they say the life expectancy of an assistant director was 55 years. Like they said that, because of the sheer pressure of that job, because it was super intense. Now, again, this is all my memory cast into time, whether it's accurate or not, I don't know. But my takeaway that day was, I got to get out of here, man. And I got to develop myself as a creative human being. And I got to find a way in this world to be able to express myself creatively. And I had felt that I'd written a screenplay and it wasn't getting traction and it wasn't getting places. And I thought maybe the best way to express myself was through comics as a means of expression, as a means of bringing stories into the world. And that began a journey unto itself that took several years, but it did lead to the ultimate publication of Evil Ernie. So my move towards comics grew out of a simmering dissatisfaction with the path that I had been on in my life, and that I had sort of subconsciously sold myself out. And being an assistant director, if it's your calling, it's an amazing craft. But man, that one day I woke up, I'm like, I do not want to do this. And it's like being trapped, dude. Like you're like neck deep in a career, and you're like, I don't want to do this.
That's the more this conversation goes, the more I know why I connect with you. Well, we didn't really have time to talk about stuff like this,
sure.
But I had a connection with you. But I see my life the same. Like I was doing, where I put myself, whatever. But I was in a job for 11 years, and I started to have anxiety like I never had it before. And my mind was telling my body, stop. And it's a very powerful thing where you're thinking you're having a stroke or something or a heart attack, but it's just your body's done. So I quit the job that I was not happy. Mm-hmm. And I kept going. I got over the anxiety thing, but kept searching. You know, I just have a small YouTube channel and I get that, but I'm really happy. So, whatever. I get it though. I mean, you think you're going down one way and you're like, this isn't what I want to do. This isn't, and a lot of people deal with this. And I think it's everyone's story, depending. I mean, my dad, I mean, he knew he was going to be a doctor. That was it. And I find that amazing.
Yeah.
And he did it all the way to the end. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he did a damn good job, and he's very professional and all that. But for me, it's always been that jumping around, trying different things out, struggle.
Yep.
You struggled in life. It didn't sound like you were struggling that bad. You had a great little experience, a lot of different experiences. But I'm sure jumping from what you had to the comic book, trying to write a book or creating, was a scary, difficult time, I'm sure.
It was interesting. It was scary, but in retrospect, I really did jump off a diving board, and I got the support of my wife, Francisca. And what I mean by that is this: I actually I started turning down work as an assistant director, not even to get by. And I really, really, really boxed myself in. And what I mean by that is I really gave myself no other choice than to be
committed.
Comics. Yeah, because I just started turning down the work. We kind of dropped down all our overhead so that I could just put my soul into getting this thing going. And probably a little known story is I actually sold 2 creator-owned series to Dark Horse. And that money, plus the small amount of money we got from Evil Ernie, and our very small overhead, allowed us to kind of get by.
Curious what those stories were.
Well, the stories were Detonator and Rack and Pain. Rack and Pain wound up being published by Dark Horse. And then unconventionally, I did not like the marketing that they did on it, so I bought back Detonator. They were cool with it. I was just like, hey, man, I don't think, I had a straight up conversation back in the day with Mike Richardson. I'm like, yeah, I don't think this marketing's cutting it. And they're probably like, who the fuck are you, man? And I'm like, yeah, I want it back. Here's the money. And they were fine with it. But yes, so yeah, that I boxed myself in, and I gave myself no other out by design. Like, it had to work. And thankfully it worked. It worked just enough. And I'm trying to remember, like, what else did I do for a living? But I think I just started just scratching along in comics.
Now, you had moved out here by then? You were in Arizona by that time?
I had actually moved, I was in Los Angeles at the time until about April '94. We actually had arrived in Arizona the day that Kurt Cobain checked out. But by then, Chaos Comics had been launched, and we were really already off to the races. That was April '94. Chaos Comics was the belle of the ball. So we were already like rocking. But
yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
So, and you had some, you created it, and then you had some issues had come up.
Absolutely.
That kind of made you kind of start over, type of thing, right?
You're talking about towards the end of Chaos Comics. I mean, through my own probably just inexperience. So Chaos Comics was built on a lot of heart, a lot of passion, a lot of excitement, but we didn't really have a lot of financial know-how. And in a very simple, common story, we overspent in certain areas. And when we started experiencing market contraction, we actually were not ready for a rainy day. So we had accumulated debt, and we had loans that were very expensive, like high interest rate loans. And we just never had a rainy day fund. And so through all these series of financial errors and maybe strategic mishaps, ultimately my company filed for bankruptcy in August '02. And it was definitely a sad day, but it truly was ultimately all on me. It was a combination of financial ignorance and strategic mishaps. And it took a little while to accept utter responsibility for it, because of course, like, we're leaving debt to both individual creators and businesses. It was horrible. It was pretty high profile for the time too, I believe. It was very, very difficult initially to overcome. I accepted it about that it was my fault. And I know that, you know, in the eyes of the universe it was, but ultimately that I was at the heart of it probably about 6 months afterwards, and that began the process of recovery.
Yeah.
And it took a few years, but it definitely happened. And psychologically afterwards, it's easier to know in hindsight, but I know that it put my brain in a bit of a fugue state where, there's this gigantic illustration of my failure for all to see and to comment upon and to weigh in on. And there it is. And I think myself as a personality, I sort of just went underground, and I kind of bought into it. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. That's okay.
I'm sure that happens to anybody in any type of, most people in situations of that, or even in any type of failure scenario. You have two choices.
Yeah.
You're going down first. You're definitely not screaming hooray at the beginning, but you learn from it, and it's just life, just like the rest of your life. You're everything. It's just a one battle after another. The movie, you say, you had a good opportunity there, and you're like, I don't want to do that, and start over. Then you try something new, and you learn from your mistakes, and now you're here. Like, you were always here and there, but now you have Coffin is so strong. Like,
beautiful.
It's the love of your life, I'm sure.
It is. It's an incredible. Yeah, Coffin is really remarkable because it's sort of the sum total of experience. But going back a little bit to that remarkable failure, I know that at some point I kind of never wanted to. It's not acknowledge it, but it held power over me. And when I finally could fully accept it and decide to try things again and stick my neck out and to be bold again, it was all the whole time. It was always an internal conversation. It was maybe there for the taking. I remembered, during this time where I was sort of suppressed, I would call it, a peer, a known guy came up to me. He's like, look, if you ever choose to get back in the publishing game, I would really love to work with you. And I was like, well, why the hell would you want to work with me? Look what I did. And he was like, no, you are a talented publisher. And it didn't hit me. It literally just bounced off. I'm like, yeah, okay, dude. Okay, cool. And as I guess there wasn't an aha awakening on that stuff, Billy. It was sort of like, okay, I'd actually become fairly resigned about comics for a couple of years. I had some fun other adventures. I had in late 2008, we shot a film. We had, myself and some partners, dear friends still, raised money, made a movie. I got to write it and direct it, sold it all across the world, did not profit. However, and it didn't change anyone's life. Of course, that would be the hope. It's like, I'm the next Sam Raimi. It's like, okay, no, you're not. But at least not at that time. But I was a bit resigned for comics, probably up until a certain point. But then I just got fired up about my first love again, probably around 2013, 2014. And I just started chugging toward it. So it wasn't like an aha, but it was more like I'm heading this way. And it's
when you raised money for the movie, was that just like one of those little things that you put in your mind? And when you came back to comics, you're like, Kickstarter? Like, because you're kind of one of the earlier, right? Like Kickstarter fundraisers for print runs?
All right. Well, to answer that question, we had raised money for the movie, and that was that. And it was only years later, I'd been being published by a different publisher. And it was when that relationship went sour and I instituted a lawsuit. Honestly, Billy, that's the thing that woke me up. Because one of my first, I fire off a lawsuit, they countersue, and I'm kind of woken up, and I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm that guy. I'm the guy who makes these kinds of moves. That kind of reminded me of it. But I had distinctly been watching my pal Jimmy Palmiotti do Kickstarters, and he was even back then. So my first Kickstarter was in 2015. Mm-hmm. He had probably already been using Kickstarter as a means of expression for about 2 years. And it wasn't lost on me. He probably had done around 5. And he was, and so even before I settled my lawsuit, I called up Jimmy one time and I'm like, so from your perspective, Jimmy, when you do these crowdfunding tools, what's the best way to do it? Should you have your project close to ready, or should you fund and then start? And he's like, have it ready and just be ready to print. And I took that like the gospel. And then kind of using my background and all the skills I had amassed throughout my adult life, including things like managing movie sets. And, you know, if you know me, you know I'm fairly methodical. I'm on time. When we did that Econ Online, you know, man, I was crazy about time, right? It's like it has to occur on time. And so all those skills that had been amassed, we're able to bring to bear on things like the crowdfunding. And, you know, to speak to this idea of the present, Coffin Comics as an expression, it's almost as if everything had been a dress rehearsal for Coffin Comics.
It's
like,
so interesting. I mean, seriously, you're very eloquent the way you describe everything, and I'm still, and maybe these people that are watching as well, kind of attach to their own life stories in different ways. I mean, you know, it's you honestly, you should probably write a book about all this, because I think it would reach out to people in their life stories that can connect in different ways. I mean, I've done a million different jobs. Like I know a lot about a lot of things, but not a lot. So like everything I've learned in business, I'm a realtor and I've been practicing right now, but you know, every little thing I've done, I know the area of Arizona better than anyone from jobs that I've done. I know business. I know how to talk to people. I've worked on myself, you know, my anxiety. I know how to connect. I know it's all, whether this is where I'm at now and this is going to be it, I don't know. But all my experiences are definitely helping me in where I'm at right now. So just like you said, everything you've done, click, you know, here and there you stop for a little bit or you had some ups and downs, and it just all came boom. And when you say present, like when we're talking about present, I thought in my head really fast when you're saying that, it's not really present. It's you're constantly thinking beyond that.
Yes.
And it's just this evolution of I'm not very good at speaking though, but it's this evolution of just Coffin Comics is constantly evolving.
It is.
And that's so great. It leaves mystery and it leaves excitement, and you have your passion, and it's just so much. I really love talking to you, man. I really do. I really do.
One thing I'd like to bring up, and maybe as a benefit to everybody, is I realized a couple of years ago, the ultimate breakthrough for me in finding power in my life is to accept my life. That my failures, like I used to kind of go a little, like this is years back, I would be a little under the radar because I'm like, yeah, well, I'm the guy who like fucked this up, or I'm like, I had this giant visible bankruptcy in the comics industry, and I'm like, I'm a turd. And then I realized that people connect to the humanity of a person being a human being right in front of them. That if you can be responsible but accept your warts and all, it gives you power. This, in no way am I saying
it releases you from it.
Pardon me?
It releases you, because if you can't accept it, you're chained to it. You're chained to your past.
Yeah, and that's what I felt like. I really was living that life for like 10 years, where I was chained to my past, and I was defining myself by it. And the breakthrough became when I was willing to show my warts. So even, it's kind of funny. Sometimes I'll be laughing. We're doing a live, and I'm tripping over my words, and like people, I was doing this live. I was having a hard time pronouncing an artist's name, and I'm laughing. And I got a PM from somebody, and their interpretation of it was that I was laughing at the artist's name.
Yeah,
I wasn't. What I was laughing at was that I was willing to make mistakes and screw up in front of people, and I could laugh at it. as opposed to being so worried about making everything look so perfect and shiny that I would be stuck, if that makes sense. So, I mean, what people that person interpreted was an entirely different experience that was going on with me internally, if that makes sense. So I think that was the big breakthrough, was like, kind of be willing to kind of show people the warts and screw up and, just be human, because, what I'm showing you guys is the best I got at the moment. So,
well, it's good enough, man. That's the hardest thing in life to do. I think is to just, like you said, accept and move forward. And some people, including myself, at a young age, I let failures guide my life. Mm-hmm. And I look back at it now and go, there went 20 years. Yeah. I wanted to play it's just a stupid story, but I wanted to play basketball. Like that's all I did my whole life, and I was really good. And I let one failure. I tried out for varsity in my freshman year. I'm a freshman, dude.
Yeah, right.
I destroyed all their seniors, but they, I don't know if it was them trying to teach me a lesson, like come back next year,
right,
or whatever. But that was it. That was it, and it changed my life.
The trajectory.
Yeah. So, and that, there goes the drugs. Then goes a whole nother world that even changed my life more. So,
yes,
the faster you can accept your failures and move on and try again, the better. I think.
Yeah, learn something from them maybe and apply them towards the future.
Yeah. You're a great example of, I'm not saying you're a great example of all these failures. No, you're a great example of just your whole life is inspiring. And I'm really glad. I'm really honest. I know we've gone over the time a little bit, but I'm really happy that we got a chance to really take a good look at it, because I've always wanted to do that with you from the beginning on, and it makes me appreciate you much more and love you that much more.
Thanks, man. I love the opportunity to really regale folks with the stories. It's kind of fun to reminisce.
I hope a lot of people see this. I know there's been a consistent 30 people here, and people watch us later. How's, just real quick, everyone in the chat? Looks like the girls are pretty present right now. Of course, you got the rocker in here, so the girls want to,
Yeah, Lisa Metcalf, I agree with everything you're saying. The fascinating thing too, so Lisa's saying you can't let your past call the shots, and it's true. But I think one of the tricks in life is realizing that you're letting it happen. Sometimes that's the trick, I think. Sometimes in my case, it'd be like, well, I'm a little asleep and I don't know what's happening until I have a breakthrough. Let's see here. Thank you, Lisa. I always appreciate that. And I'm very sorry to hear, Connie.
I'm sorry, Connie. I'm looking at
those are those crosses we all have to bear, things like that. But I have a lot of compassion for what you experienced there. It's tough.
Sydney Hill.
Sydney
Hill asks a good question. I put it on the screen.
Okay. So as someone who's gone through one downturn, I've definitely seen a couple of economic downturns. Do I see one coming in comics today? Wow, that's probably a subject for a whole other conversation. So comic books are going through an evolution. You're seeing comic books reach people in two dominant manners at the moment. The first manner is through conventional comic book shop market distribution. And then another is through crowdfunding. It's actually very dominant right now. And maybe thirdly, through the major booksellers. Probably the biggest category of comics, of which I don't know much about, is comics that are directed towards teenagers. And some of the biggest sellers, like, they're not Marvel, DC, and I don't know anything about them, but they're outside of this market. I do think clearly that we are seeing a redefinition of what the comic book market is going to be defined as. And I don't know. I think we're in a very, very difficult circumstance where companies and businesses that were not prepared for a rainy day are really going to suffer. And I don't want this for anybody, but I think that's what's going to occur.
You're talking because of the Corona thing.
Yeah, because of all the governmental rules, all the shutdowns preventing people from having a business. And I think there'll be a redefinition out of that. Right now, a lot of folks like us, we choose to reach people directly because ever since the beginning of my career, I've known that the people who read and collect our comics are our customer. It was never confusing to me. It was always defined that way. So when we got back in the game in 2015, it was only logical to use mail order and crowdfunding to reach people directly. And at the moment, that seems to be, it seems like that's going to be more of the dominant way that people get comics, or it's going to be equally dominant to the conventional distribution market.
Hey, Brian, like this is what I think is interesting is, so you're using, see, here's where I think you had the right timing for everything, because I think the real worry here is, and I know that the coronavirus will affect some publishers and print, and yeah, that's going to happen.
Absolutely.
But in regard to the comic book industry, what the problem here is, most buyers, in my mind, are somewhere between 30 and 55 years old.
Yeah.
And so in regard to comic book stores, actual paper versus digital, I think the digital came in trying to attract younger audience because they're all on the phone. So, yeah. And of course, the main buyers are older people with money. What I think is very interesting, and that's the battle here. Where is that going to go? I think digital eventually, 20 years, 10 years, whatever, however long, that will be the future. But which is unfortunate. But I think what's very interesting here is what people are learning today, Brian. You take SourcePoint, you take all these different publishers that when they said they can't go to a Comic-Con, they can't leave their house, as well as you with the Coffin Comics Online, kind of the first guy that did it. They're branching out to the media, internet, Facebook. And what I'm saying is you're on top of that is because you've been doing it for years.
Years.
And that's the secret. You're reaching out, well, we could call it digitally in a way, like through the internet, to provide paper. Like
exactly.
Actual paper.
We love the paper.
Yeah. So it's brilliant. And maybe that's the future of comics. What you're doing, you know.
I mean, I think maybe. I think here's the interesting thing. I think all of these things can exist. I think digital can exist, and it doesn't necessarily invalidate paper. I think direct-to-consumer driven companies can exist, and I do think that there'll be a comic shop market after this whole thing settles.
Sure.
And I think they can peacefully coexist. I realize that from my perspective, I've been pretty upfront with this with most people. When I got back in the comics game in 2015, it was only after interviewing many of the captains of industry in that mechanism called the comic direct market. I talked to retailers, publishers on the distribution end. And what I concluded for myself was that my company for all time would always be at an economic disadvantage in that marketplace. And it's for these reasons. And this is, you and I have talked about this a little bit before, and this is where it gets drilled down and a little nerdy. But in the comic book previews catalog, there's publishers who are in the front of the catalog, and there's publishers in the back. Independents are in the back. Instantaneously, independents are at an economic disadvantage because they get less of a discount. The bigger guys in the front offer accumulative discounts. Also, the comic shop market is many of the owners, a majority of the owners, have a great nostalgia for the characters that they grew up on. And that would be the Marvel DC characters, and to a lesser degree to other characters that evoke nostalgia, G.I. Joe, Star Wars, etc. And so to attempt to penetrate that market has always been a challenge. So I look at life like this: buzz, pain, pain, buzz. Of course, we always want to move towards buzz, and we want less pain. So at the end of my exploratory, I realized, I'm like, okay, we're going to put certain effort into that market, but we're going to put the great majority of our effort reaching our customer. And our customer to us is the reader and the collector. It wasn't the comic shop owner, respectfully, because the comic shop owner, from our perspective, had defined themselves as being less interested. And no beef about it. I just decided to go where people cared more.
Well, people love you. I mean,
And I love
you're
people.
definitely the best booth at every Comic-Con. By far, dude. Every time you have the best booth. You
Dude,
really go all out.
Good time, man. As you know, man, my motto is work hard, play harder.
Yeah, and it's good to have that mix at Con. Well, Brian, look, we're going to go over your site really fast, one more time for everyone.
Just let me check if there's any other big questions. Brian, will you be working with Billy Tucci again in the future? He is fire. Billy is a very long-time dear friend of mine, and God knows what the heck we're cooking up. We may be cooking something else up. Let's see here. Lee Rogers. I believe that the Wuhan virus was a boost to online comic websites and indies. It hurt the mainstreams. What do you think? It does appear, Lee, it kind of appears like that. eBay's on fire. Auctions are on fire. Companies that have always been entrenched in mail order are kind of cooking along right now. And it is a challenge for the conventional system right now. Let's see here. I understand how you feel. Yes, working on it. Lisa, that's great. I actually have a shadow box of my dad's stuff right over here. On this part of my office, I have all trinkets and cool objects from when I grew up, and my mom's and my dad's and all that stuff. Very sorry for your loss. Well, if you want to do a wrap up by talking a little bit more.
Yeah, no. Look,
segue back to
I'm gonna wrap it up by showing the site one more time. But Brian, thanks, man. I mean, I really
thank you, man.
You've accepted me
in person.
That was that.
I look forward to hanging with you in person.
Yeah, I can't wait till this is over. I need to get back to the secret lair, man. I love it there, and I really appreciate everything you've done for me since we finally got to actually really sit down and talk for a little bit.
Man, since you and I connected, man, you guys have been on fire.
Yeah, it's been sickness over here. Okay, so let me see here, and I have to ask you one more question after I show this screen here. Let's see. Okay, so you guys, if you want, you can see it, right?
Yeah. So here we are at ladydeathstore.com, where our new promotion is May the 4th be with you.
And right here under category is the May the 4th, 2020. So you can click that. You can click on anything, guys. But here's all the new books these are all going to be a limited run, and then they're going to end the run once probably the 5th.
Yeah, well, we listened to the feedback, and for this particular promotion, we are going to limit the print runs to whatever orders people have until the end of the weekend. So there's a couple of books that are more limited in nature, but we're making many of the books available until Tuesday at 1 o'clock. This is the Return of Lady Slave. And then there's the naughty version of Return of Lady Slave. These are great books by David Harrigan. Make a cool set. We could not do this kind of cool book called Smile by Elias Chatzoudas.
Yeah.
I mean, the physique on Lady Death, the attitude, the setting, it's totally cool. Yeah, Elias really knocked this one out of the park. I had mentioned earlier in the broadcast that this is a more sublime Lady Death, maybe a private moment where she's allowing herself some small measure of pleasure instead of being embroiled in perpetual anger.
Oh, man.
She's a very angry lady.
And you can use the code Econ4th. That's right.
Yeah. So you could use Econ 4th, and between us, you could probably use it throughout the entire site this weekend.
So here's my question for you.
I
want to get caught up on all the La Muerta.
Yes.
So where would I go? Also, I have Joel Gomez working on an original for me.
Look at you.
So would I just?
Yeah.
I want to get like a book.
And let's click on La Muerta. You're scroll down just a little bit more.
Right there.
There you go. Let's click on that one.
Okay, so I want to get
And so here I'm gonna answer your question. Right at the top here, it goes by chapter for Coffin Comics. So if you were to click a given chapter, Descent, Last Rites, Vengeance, we're going to show you the various editions we've created. But for example, we call the main edition the Premier Edition. The fun thing about La Muerta, which as you mentioned is coming up with a brand new Kickstarter May 20th.
Oh, yeah.
That book, the Premier Editions are historically 48 pages in square bound. And it's a gorgeous cover by Ortiz. And we're going to be offering our 6th chapter on May 20th. We've had the same creative team on since the get-go. Mike McLean writing, Joel.
If it says premiere, that's the one that includes every issue from that?
Well, it's the main storyline. Yeah, it's the main storyline. And the other ones we're looking at are variant editions that are of a more limited nature.
But okay, so this one right here,
yes,
this is the whole storyline as well?
Yes, sir. They're all the complete storyline.
So that one holds how many stories are in the first chapter? Is it only one story? Chapter one?
So for each book we call a chapter, and in that chapter is 48 pages of story and art. And to really know La Muerta's origin, it takes chapter 1 and chapter 2. So it's actually 2 chapters will really give you her initial storyline.
Okay, so I have a couple copies of those. So
I
then
bet you have Last Rites, so now you need Descent.
Let me see. I think I have these. Yeah, I have this one here.
Yep.
So that, do you have a not an omnibus, but
well, we do have a trade. So in this particular category, a subcategory, if you go all the way down to the right, no, where you're at, that's am I wrong?
Am I going the right way?
You are going the right way.
Okay.
I think we passed it.
Oh.
So we have a trade, and the series is called La Muerta Lives, and volume 1 is out, and we're going to put volume 2 out next year.
I must be passing it.
Yeah, we've passed it. Let me see here. But it's very easily searched on our site.
I just put La Muerta Lives.
La Muerta Lives Volume 1.
I'll just put La Muerta.
There it is.
Okay. So this one has 1 through 5?
1 through 3. And again, that's over 150 pages of story and art. And that tells, yeah. And we're about to do, next year, we'll do chapters 4 through 6.
So I can buy one of these. That's what I'm getting at. So
yes,
I'm going to buy one of these is what's going to happen here.
Yes, you got the trade, which you're clicking on now. There's the hardcover version. If you
I like the hardcover, yeah.
Those are rad. And a beautiful cover by Alex Ronald, or the signed special edition, which has extra goodies inside.
Like what, extra pages or extra art?
The goodies that we're offering on that one is a signed book plate signed by the entire creative team. And it also includes that beautiful watercolor by Joel Gomez.
Is it an original or is it a print of the watercolor?
It is a print, yeah.
But it has a signed plate with the whole team.
That's right.
And it's limited to 200.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah, last couple of those.
I'm going to do that. And because I want to read it. I want to read the whole thing and get all my goodies too. So I'm adding that to the cart, and I'll add that. I don't want to put all my information in there. So
okay, fair.
Let me back out of here. But yeah, so I want to read the whole thing like a book.
I love that. Another option is we're about to do the La Muerta Retaliation Kickstarter, which we're going to kick off on May 20th. And several of the reward tiers will include the various collections of previous materials, so people could then catch up.
So do you think I should wait then? Or?
I think whatever gets your freak flag flying. So it's available now, or the only neg is that you would have to wait. That's all. Like you could have it in your sweaty little hands now, or you have to wait.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Or you'll have to wait till July. Your call.
Well, I'm gonna use the Econ 4th on it anyway. So
Nice.
Pick it up because I wanted to get it. And I want to be all up to date on that. I probably have the comics, but they're so nice I don't want to open them. So
let
that
me ask you a question. You've been seeing Joel Gomez's post. This kid is like bugging out. He's totally on fire. Is it me?
no, he's good.
Yeah, he's good, man.
And I like him a lot. He's a very nice guy.
Lovely. He is such a lovely person through and through.
He's got the Arizona feel. He's in San Diego, but you've been
got the Cal kid feel.
Yeah. But you've been here long enough to know that our go-to as an Arizonan is San Diego.
That's
so
right.
like that's where we go. So it's like we're the same. So yeah, I got him to that we were just looking at it, that print or whatever it was, where it's like colored. I'm having him do a 12 by 18 of that figure of her head shot down with like the necklaces and her eyes. I have to have that. Like, it's so good. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm gonna let you go though, man. You've been longer than I know you probably were thinking, as well as me too. So Joel keeps asking about Hell Witch.
Well, let me ask you. Let me see here.
The new Hell Witch.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me tell you some Hell Witch stuff. I'm happy to talk. Billy, you and me, we're birds of a feather. We're like, yep. But yeah, Hell Witch. So Hell Witch 3, Sacrilegious, coming October of this year.
Oh, man.
We are in production. The artist illustrating Hell Witch is Ed Bennis. Ed Bennis, Birds of Prey. I mean, I worked with Ed back in the Chaos days on Chastity, but here we are, Ed Bennis. He has the first, let's see, that's a 48-page story. We always break them into 2 parts. So he has the first 24 pages. If you've enjoyed Hell Witch up until now, it's more. So if you like the sex and the violence, this time it's more, because basically it's a women in prison story. So it's women in prison in hell. So it's more of the same. Which is coming, and I think we announced Ed Bennis 2 weeks ago on a Kickstarter update for the Kickstarter backers, and in all likelihood, in the next 2 weeks, I'll start showing pages, and the pages are bananas. It's good stuff. So yeah, I think you guys will enjoy it. And on that particular Kickstarter, I know a couple of extras we're doing. We're going to do a bunch of patches and a back patch for jackets, for denim jackets. And we did a shirt last year, so I think that's the replacement piece. And some cover artists so far. A couple secret ones I can't name, but we have a beautiful Sun K, Richard Ortiz, Paolo Pantalena, off the top of my head already, and they're gorgeous. So if you've enjoyed Hell Witch so far, I think you might enjoy this one that much more. Let me see here.
Well, I'm excited for that La Muerta coming up.
So Evil Animosity is asking any more news about Lady Death's seductress figure. Yes, we in fact, we actually made a complete announcement via one of our newsletters that we'll be offering it for pre-sale next Friday. So Lady Death Legacy action figure and Lady Death Seductress statue based on the artwork of Eric E. Bass.
How much is that statue?
Pardon me?
How much is a statue?
Statue is $280, and then it's actually pretty reasonable. It's a huge statue too, dude. It's I mean, usually these statues, it's 18 inches tall. So,
were those prototypes that were in your office? Those 3 prototypes? Is that the one?
Actually, yet another series. So that's what we're going to do in 2021. The prototypes you're referring to are called a series called Majestic. But this one, believe it or not, behind the scenes, sometimes it takes a while to get these ready to offer. And this particular one, Seductress, has been in process for 3 years behind the scenes. So first up, here it comes.
I got my little one right there. See?
Yes, you do. Look at you. Yeah, that one's cool. They're excellent. Right on.
All right. Well, again, Brian, thank you so much. You guys go over, check out the store. You can use code Econ4th for Star Wars Day. A lot of goodies.
You guys have been sick. I've been Brian Pulido. Holler at you later.
Thanks. Bye. All right. See you guys. Have a great day.
You too, man. Later.